Whip stitch, blanket stitch, and buttonhole stitch are three stitches that are commonly used to tie in the edges of an otherwise possibly fraying fabric. Whip stitch you already know how to do, even if you don't know that you know it, because it's just the most obvious way to sew around and around and around an edge. It's just a spiral. But it leaves a lot of that edge visible between stitches, and you have to pack quite a few of them in to compensate for that, and even then it looks a bit rubbish. Blanket stitch looks a bit better as it lays a bit of each stitch along the edge to kind of bridge the gap and tidy things up a bit. And it turns each stitch into a knot, so it kind of adds some security as well. Buttonhole stitch, which is commonly conflated with blanket stitch but is a different thing, takes it one step further, making a slightly more complicated knot at the top of each stitch, which leaves a nice stout edge with a pretty little row of purls. Deconstructed, the relationship between them works like this. Whip stitch, as I said, is just a spiral. In each stitch, the thread is behind the fabric, the thread is in front of the fabric. If you remove the fabric and turn each of those stitches half a twist, and then put the fabric back, you have blanket stitch. Thread goes behind itself, in front of the fabric, behind the fabric, and in front of itself. So a simple little knot is formed at the top of each stitch. If you remove the fabric and add another twist, and squish the diagram up a little bit, you've got buttonhole stitch. Thread goes behind itself, in front of itself, behind the fabric, in front of the fabric, behind itself, and in front of itself. So a slightly more complicated and prettier knot is formed at the top of each stitch. So that was fun and super cool, but not very useful if you actually want to sew these stitches. For whip stitch, you just put the needle through from the front to the back of the fabric over and over again while keeping the trailing thread out of the way. For blanket stitch, you still go through from front to back, but you have the trailing thread looped in such a way that you can bring the needle up through it with each stitch. And for buttonhole stitch, you loop the thread even further round, and also put the needle through the fabric from back to front, so as to form a more complicated knot. And then fiddle that knot so it sits in the right place and doesn't tangle. You can do any of these stitches holding the fabric any way up you please, and you can do them the way that I've just shown you, or you can do them reversed. Just watch this video in a mirror, whatever's most comfortable for you. Whip stitch's main selling point is that it's really easy, so you never have to look up a diagram about how to do it. Blanket stitch is a bit more secure and a bit prettier, but it's still easy enough that you can probably remember how to do it. A proper buttonhole stitch is a little bit fiddly, and you might have to look up how to do it if it's been a while, but it's awfully pretty and seriously robust, and if you ask me, it's just better.